Alan Lane, CEO of Silvergate Bank. Welcome to Bitcoin for Corporations. Thanks for being with us today.
Yeah. Hi, Michael. It's good to see you again, and it's great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
So you're our lone commercial bank on the program, and you're here because of all the leadership you've shown in the Bitcoin community. And I thought it was really important for us to have a bank represented. So I'm sure that everybody in this conference is very interested in your perspectives on Bitcoin for corporations and Bitcoin banking. So without further ado, why don't we start with you telling us about your company and its background, your employees, and anything else we need to know about you.
Sure. Yeah. This is a great opportunity, I think, for us as a bank to speak directly to businesses who are considering, potentially putting Bitcoin on their balance sheet. I have been a business banker for most of my 40-year career. Have also spent some time in private industry, actually running businesses in both retail and manufacturing back in the 1990s, when a lot of my customers weren't born yet. But it's great to it's great to talk to businesses because this intersection of what Bitcoin can mean for businesses, I think is just huge. You've been a leader in this with what you've done with MicroStrategy. And we're here to support the Bitcoin ecosystem. And so just to answer your question, tell you a little bit about Silvergate. Silvergate's a commercial bank. We're headquartered in Southern California. We've been around for over 30 years. I joined the bank in December of 2008, right at the height of the 2008 financial crisis. And what attracted me to the bank was that it was small, but it was clean. And importantly, the board of directors, the leadership at Silvergate, looked at risk and reward differently from most other bankers that I had ever met. And the bank, though, was really small when I joined. We had a little bit less than 300 million in assets. Today we have 16 billion in assets, and still by most banking standards, we're pretty small. But what's important is that almost all of those assets are supporting this Bitcoin and cryptocurrency ecosystem. And the way that happened, just to kind of get to the punchline here, is we were growing nicely through the financial crisis because we were clean, because we could lend. And because we saw a lot of opportunities in 2009 and 10, 11. So we were growing nicely, and we were looking for deposit sources to fund our loan growth. And in 2013, I discovered Bitcoin personally. It was intellectual curiosity. I was reading about Bitcoin and how with Bitcoin you could be your own bank. And being a career banker, I thought, well, gosh, I wonder how that works. And I wonder if I'm going to be out of a job. And so I bought some Bitcoin to understand how it worked. And when I went down the rabbit hole a little bit, I discovered that there were companies that were being formed to provide services to this ecosystem. And those companies were struggling to find and maintain banking relationships.
Like Coinbase.
Absolutely. Great example. And so what we set out to do, and it's very important to keep this framed properly. Regulatory compliance is at the forefront of everything that we do. If we can't maintain a good relationship with our regulators, then we don't have a business. And so we started trying to figure out, okay, how is there a way for us to bank these companies in a regulatory compliant, safe and sound manner, applying existing regs. And that's, you've heard about these: Anti-Money Laundering, Bank Secrecy Act, Know Your Customer. And what we did was we applied those regulations to this institutional community that was being formed. We are a business bank. We don't have consumers as customers. And so what we discovered was, yes, there is a framework. There was a lot of talk about, oh, this is the Wild West and it's not regulated. And there's certainly an element of more regulatory clarity needed in certain aspects. But in general, we've been doing this now, Michael, since January of 2014. We started looking at it in 2013. We opened our very first account for a business in this ecosystem And at that time, it was Bitcoin only. It's obviously gotten much bigger than that in terms of the broader crypto market. But it was Bitcoin only in January 2014. We opened an account for our first customer, and we've been building the business ever since.
So I'm sure you could tell me stories. Your Silvergate's a publicly traded company. You want to say anything about your capital structure, your investors, or et cetera?
Yeah, sure. So when I joined, we were private, and we were privately owned up until a little over 2 years ago. Okay. We went public on the New York Stock Exchange in November of 2019, and the reason we went public was essentially to have more efficient access to capital to support the growth of this initiative. In 2017, we saw our asset size double in a year, and most banks don't carry enough capital to double in a year. And being privately owned, that put a lot of strain on our capital resources. We had to go out and do a private equity offering at the end of 2017. And our communication to our new investors at that time was that financing, they could consider that a bridge to an IPO, that they weren't going to be stuck, invested in a privately owned, illiquid stock, but that we were going to bring the company public. Of course, the crypto winter hit right then, but we just kept right on building, Michael, and we had launched the SEN, which I'd love to tell you about, and just added customers, and finally got public in November of 19.
Okay. Well, then that's a good segue. Tell me about what kind of products and services you offer to your customers.
Yeah. So our flagship product and what we're known for in the ecosystem is the Silvergate Exchange Network. Importantly, it's not an exchange itself, but rather it's a network of exchanges connecting those exchanges to institutional investors. So you can think about this. So the exchanges are all of the major regulated exchanges, cryptocurrency exchanges in the U.S., Coinbase and Kraken and Gemini and Bitstamp, et cetera. And we connect them to institutional investors, whether they be hedge funds, private equity firms, VCs, family offices, any institution that is investing in Bitcoin and digital currencies as an asset class. And the problem that we solved for our customers with the launch of the SEN was our customers before the SEN, they were spending half of their day just trying to figure out how to have the right amount of dollars, US dollars, on the right platform going into nights and weekends, because as you know, the Bitcoin market doesn't sleep. Right. I've heard you tell the stories about when you were making MicroStrategy's first investment in Bitcoin and how you were, doing that, trying to not move the market. And, that was a 24/7 endeavor, I'm sure. That would not be possible without the SEN because the banking system only operates 40 hours a week during normal business hours. And so what we've been able to do via our tech stack, we built an API so that our customers can code to the API so that they can literally, have these programmatic trading strategies that can pull money from their account at Silvergate, put it onto an exchange around the globe, and execute trading strategies 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.
Okay. So what other services are you getting into?
Yeah, so that's clearly the primary benefit for that is for cryptocurrency trading, right? When you get over onto the more corporate banking side, a product we launched a couple years ago is a product that we call SEN Leverage, which is essentially taking that trade name that we've developed called the SEN and applying it to the other side of the balance sheet to provide our customers leverage against their Bitcoin holdings. And so what that is, it is literally a Bitcoin collateralized lending offer. And we started that in a pilot phase in early 2020, right before the pandemic hit. We had been working with our regulators on it for about 6 months previous. And so we launched the pilot in January of 2020. Since then, that has now become, quite a successful offering. We ended the year with just under 600 million in loan commitments in that initiative. And importantly, Michael, we have several custodial partners, so that if someone like you comes to us and says, hey, I want to borrow against my Bitcoin, but I keep it at Fidelity, or I keep it at NYDIG, or I keep it at Coinbase Custody. We've developed a network of custodians that we work with so that you can keep your Bitcoin right where it's at. And that custodial partner locks it up, if you will, on our behalf, so that we feel comfortable lending against it. And then we have the ability, because it's a bearer digital instrument, as you know, we can liquidate the collateral if we need to, but you don't want to see your Bitcoin liquidated, so you're likely going to keep that margin in check, or you're going to pay down the loan.
Okay, so yeah, it seems like the demand for credit lines or loans against Bitcoin as collateral is growing over the past 2 or 3 years. You think?
Yeah, it absolutely is, and just kind of emphasize that I haven't had a chance to catch much of the session today, although I did speed watch last night. I caught up on your interviews yesterday, but this morning I saw that you guys had Jeffries on, and shortly after we launched this product in the first quarter of 2020, I was already thinking ahead to think, okay, there's going to be huge demand for this, potentially much larger than what we're going to be able to hold on our balance sheet. So we're going to start thinking about, how do we syndicate these loans? How do we get other players involved? And just to show you, just to demonstrate how much this space has evolved over the last 2 years, I reached out to Jeffries in the first quarter of 2020, not to the gentleman that you had on this morning, and not to take anything away from them, but they said, yeah, that sounds interesting, but we're not really looking at that. So fast forward now 2 years, and they're clearly a player in this space. But to your point, the demand is growing exponentially. Some of our clients, Genesis Trading, for instance, they've got a nice Bitcoin lending book. They're a customer of ours, and so yeah, it's an exciting time. I coined the phrase a couple of years ago. It's a great time to be a Bitcoin banker.
On the subject of customers, I'm a customer of yours, and so I haven't told anybody, but in full disclosure, I actually have a credit line with Silvergate Bank because I don't want to have to sell Bitcoin, but occasionally I might want to borrow against it. And I thought the experience was very smooth and very professional, and highly recommend it.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Michael. Thank you for your business.
Yeah, more to come.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a bit more about those credit lines. I noticed, didn't you give a credit line to Marathon? They disclosed they had a Bitcoin-backed credit line, at least I thought.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and this, again, this is a great intersection for the beyond cryptocurrency trading and into the corporate domain, right? Because Marathon Digital Holdings is a Bitcoin mining company, but we didn't lend to them against their equipment, for instance. So they're a business, right? So we can go to them and we can say, okay, well, we'll make you a business line of credit. But where we're solely focused in our business banking initiative is in lending against Bitcoin on companies' balance sheets. And so Marathon did announce back, I think it was early October, they made the announcement that we had made them a $100 million line of credit collateralized by the Bitcoin that's on their balance sheet.
This is very cool. So you want to describe generally your customer base, and are you pursuing corporations, high net worth individuals, family offices, crypto exchanges? What do you see as your market?
Yeah, all of the above. So we bucket so we have 3 buckets that we kind of categorize our customers in. The first is the cryptocurrency exchanges. We've talked about those already. The second group is what we call the institutional investor class, and that is everything that I mentioned. Family offices is a great example there. But then the third is this category that we're not creative marketers, so we call it the other bucket. But that's really where all of the other types of businesses that are interacting. If it's not an exchange or an institutional investor, but they're involved in this Bitcoin space, that's where they go. So that's Bitcoin mining companies. Marathon's a great example of that. Could be protocol developers, security companies, anybody, and that's where we would also put a corporation who might come to us and say, "Hey, we've got Bitcoin on our balance sheet, and we just want a line of credit because we don't ever want to have to sell the Bitcoin." And so yeah, that's the way we look at it.
What's the typical customer journey for a company that wants to do business with you?
Yeah, so we've been able to take advantage of a lot of the technology tools out there. So what we typically do is, folks can come right to our website. We've got an integration with Salesforce, and so they can immediately put the information online, and we'll get back to them, very promptly to explore what they're looking for. But we've got a dedicated team of folks who do nothing but help customers onboard through the process. It depends on if they're looking for a deposit relationship, if they're just looking for a loan against their Bitcoin. When we first started this business, Michael, as you might imagine, it took quite a bit longer to get through the process because we just hadn't developed the different ways to look at what the regulatory requirements are. But what I can tell you is that if you're a corporation and you're not trying to, you're not using other people's money to buy and sell Bitcoin, you're really just coming to us as a business looking to get a loan against your Bitcoin holdings, then it is a very quick and easy process. We don't have to, there's not a lot of BSA, anti-money laundering stuff that we have to worry about if you're just a normal business with an affinity for Bitcoin.
Okay, that's good to know. How do you view the outlook for the Bitcoin market in the coming 1 to 3 years?
Yeah, so we've been doing this now, as I mentioned, for 8 years, and so we've been through a couple of cycles. Who knows where we are in this current cycle, but in general, and I don't need to tell you all the characteristics of Bitcoin and why it's only going to get further adoption and the scarcity factor, et cetera. More and more folks are coming into the space. We announced our earnings here a couple of weeks ago, and our pipeline of new prospects at the end of 2021 was bigger than it's ever been. And so we just don't see this slowing down at all. We are beginning to work on some new initiatives. One of the things we haven't talked about yet, within our customer stack, we have a segment of customers who provide stablecoins to the ecosystem. Silvergate banks all of the existing regulated US dollar-backed stablecoin offerings. And so they use the SEN and our API for the minting and burning of stablecoins 24/7. And just earlier this week, we announced that we purchased the DM blockchain technology and intellectual property from the DM Association so that we can issue our own stablecoin. The primary use case for that, from our perspective, will be for payments and commerce, and not, payments and remittance, and not for cryptocurrency trading. And for many that in the audience, if they're familiar with cryptocurrency and stablecoins, they'll know that the current primary use case for stablecoins is more cryptocurrency trading. It's access to DeFi, it's NFTs, it's all that stuff that's not Bitcoin. Where we see the value that Silvergate can provide as a bank is in offering a bank issued regulated stablecoin for use in payments and remittance, apart from cryptocurrency trading. And so, and we think about these things at scale, and think about them as, providing a tokenized dollar that can be used around the world.
It seems like a huge opportunity. So you'll have your own stable coin, and then you'll be the back end and infrastructure for some other stable coins. Is that your view of the future?
Yeah, I think so. If someone comes to us and they want us to white label a stable coin, there's a lot of work to do on the regulatory front, and I don't want to to underemphasize that, because we've been working with the DM Association for over a year now, and it became clear last November when the regulators issued the President's Working Group report on stablecoins. It became clear that the preference from a regulatory and a political perspective in the U.S. is to have stablecoins issued by banks. We're a bank. We've already done a lot of the work, but there's more work to be done, and we'll be working closely with our regulators to get something in the market, hopefully this year.
Can we call it the silver coin?
Yeah, I was talking
you got a name? What's
well,
the name?
yeah, we don't have a name yet, but I was talking to reporters yesterday who were asking me, and I said, yeah, we got to figure it out soon.
How about this one, the silver dollar?
The silver dollar. There you go.
Bring back the silver dollar, Alan. Everybody loved the silver dollar, and they're
absolutely
gone. I don't know. Your marketing people you'll put it in the other cat. You're not going to call it other coin.
No, we're not going to call it other.
Don't call it other coin.
No.
Silver coin, silver dollar, USDS, US lots of dollars. I don't know. It'll be fun. It seems like you've got the inside track, right? I mean, clearly the regulators want a bank to issue stable coins, and it seems to me like the market demand is insatiable if it comes from a trustworthy regulated entity. And so now it's just kind of a question of path forward, right?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right.
Okay. So we talk a little bit about the future. Any advice or suggestions to corporations that are interested in getting into Bitcoin, integrating their P&L or their balance sheet, or doing business, setting up credit lines and the like? What would you say to a CEO if they were sitting and listening to you right now?
Yeah, I would say just get in the game, and know that if you are taking some of your excess liquidity and you're buying Bitcoin with it, there is a bank ready, willing, and able to lend you dollars against that Bitcoin. So it's not you're not just socking it away. Silvergate will lend you dollars against it, and we are here to help.
Thanks, Alan. Thanks for lending to me as a happy customer, and thanks for your leadership in the industry, and look forward to working with you in the year to come.
Thank you, Michael. Looking forward to it as well. Have a great afternoon.
You too.
Bye-bye.